Welcome to On the Sidelines, the show that discusses sports and how sports can affect a person's life. I'm your host, Paul McGrath, and I'm glad that you could join us today. We're glad to have with us Westborough resident Peter Casparriello, who was a member of the 1984 Boston College football team that had Doug Flutie and a play known as The Miracle in Miami. But before we begin, I'd like to mention that our Photos from On the Sidelines segment will have a trivia question, and thanks to our friends at Avidia Bank, a great prize for the winner. All you have to do is email us at studio@westboroughtv.org with On the Sidelines trivia as the subject matter. I will repeat that at the Photos from the On Sideline portion of the show. And now let's meet Peter. Peter,
Paul,
thanks for coming on the Sidelines.
pleasure. Thanks for having me.
We're going to talk a lot about football, needless to say, in Boston College, but before we get to that, how did you get interested in football? Where did you play? How did this all develop?
My dad played for Somerville High School, and he always had such great memories. I remember as a kid looking at old tape of him playing football, and we were always interested in that. We had season tickets a couple of years to the Patriots, the Russ Francis, Steve Krogan, Sam Bam Cunningham, Minnie Mac Heron.
Good
Patriots.
teams, yes.
And they were good, and of course I loved watching it. The NFL was a great product, even though we saw a lot of Giants games from when I was a kid, as opposed to Patriots home games.
So your father played. What position was he?
My father was a lineman for Somerville High School, and a lot of his friends, even when he got older, were his former high school buddies.
Yeah.
So, they were around a lot. And so my father really influenced me. He got me involved in Pop Warner. So I played for Somerville Pop Warner, like a lot of kids do when they're little. And we were never very good. I don't think we ever won more than 2 games a year.
But you enjoyed playing it.
But we loved playing. I remember running around in garbage bags to make weight and things like that. So it was fun. But from there, I was just a big kid, and big kids play football, I guess.
So you played for Somerville High?
I played for Somerville High, We played in Somerville High. I graduated in 1983.
Okay. So we go from Somerville High. How do we get to Boston College?
I mean, again, I think that in Somerville High School, I was a little lighter then, so I had the chance to play quarterback in high school, and we were okay my sophomore year. I think we were 4-6, and we had a pretty good team, and I did okay, And then we went the next year. We were 0-8-2, and then my senior year we were 5-5. And I remember not even really thinking about going to college to play football. It was never even a thought. It's not like today where kids, they play AAU or they play a sport and, they're worried about being recruited in the 8th grade. I never.
That wasn't the goal.
No, it wasn't really the goal. We were playing football. And I remember Coach Sharon, my junior year, was the quarterback's coach, great guy. And he said, I got a phone call from UMass, a guy named Coach Reed, and he wants to talk to you. So I'm like, what's going on? It really.
Who wants to talk to me?
Yeah. So at that point, you start getting these letters in the mail, but it's never really a reality until someone offers you. You know what I mean? So there was a bunch of little things, but I did get offered by UMass. And I remember that being a big deal. I remember Syracuse coming, Coach McPherson coming to basketball practice my senior year. I remember that. But ultimately, when BC offered, it was a big thing. Doug Flutie and that at the time.
Doug Flutie was already at the school.
Doug Flutie was already there.
And now, what position were you?
In high school, I was a quarterback. Quarterback and a linebacker.
So we get to BC, and we have a picture here. You're first year, I guess, red shirt, and number 19, quarterback. You're going to take over from Flutie, or what was your goal here?
Well, I was recruited out of high school as a quarterback, and I was maybe a lot lighter.
Yeah.
I wasn't a quarterback. Believe me, I was not a quarterback. But they tried it. I came in and went to the summer camp my senior year, so would have been, after my junior year, I went to the camp, BC's football camp, and because they invited me to that camp, and I think I did okay, and I got the offer. I remember it was Thanksgiving my senior year of high school when BC offered me, and they offered me as a quarterback, and Doug Flutie was a big name, but you're thinking you have a chance to play, so of course you show up to camp. You show up to, and you throw the ball a little bit, and all of a sudden you're looking around, and there's 5 or 6 other kids that are just as big as you, just as fast, can throw the ball just as far, and really, really good players. And I played most of my freshman year as a redshirt, and at some point the coaches came up to me and said, "Hey, do you want to play or not? Because you're not going to be playing quarterback, but you could stay on and we'll keep your scholarship, but we'd like you to switch positions," because I just gained a little bit of weight. I got a little stronger. So I said, "Yeah, wherever you want me to play," and that's kind of how I ended up as a tight end. They said, "We'd like you to play tight end," and I said, "That's fine. If I can play there, let's go."
And you're on the field.
Yeah.
And instead of being number 19, we changed to number 85. So your first game at Boston College, you're playing West Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Here we have a picture of you playing West Carolina first game.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like it was raining. I don't know if it was raining or not.
Yeah, it was probably a little bit of rain there.
Yeah, but what's it like? Now you're before family and friends. It's not like you're playing away from home.
Well, you have to understand, by the time I played in my first game, I had already been at BC a year.
So you filtered in, yeah.
So I kind of knew the speed of the game now, and I understood what was expected. The previous year, were pretty good. We played in the Liberty Bowl against Notre Dame at the end of the year. I think we were maybe 8-3 or something like that. So we had played a lot of good teams, so I kind of knew what to expect. What I didn't know was if I could really play and make a contribution. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because in high school, you could score a touchdown it was easy. College, I wasn't sure if I could do it. And I do remember this game in particular because I remember I got the only stat line I could ever tell you of any game I ever played in college would be this one. And I know this off the top of my head. 2 catches for 40 yards.
You got that one trained in there.
I remember it, and I don't know why. I think just because it was the first game, and I guess I validated to myself that I could do it.
Well, and maybe Flutie had confidence in you, too, to throw to you.
Yeah, I was shocked, to be honest with you. I was absolutely shocked they threw the ball to me. I was shocked that I was in the game because you just don't know. You really don't know. I knew I was going to play special teams. I had no idea I was going to play as much as I did.
You'd be the tight end.
Yeah, but I was not the starting tight end. I was the second team tight end.
So that's the first game. BC was ranked at that point when the game number 19.
Yep.
And the final score was BC 44, Western Carolina 24.
Yeah.
So we're off to a good start.
Sure.
Now here we are, kid from Somerville playing for BC. The next weekend, we travel to Alabama. Okay, we're number 18 in the country by then, and we're playing number 9, Alabama. Okay, and a few facts here. The attendance at that game is 67,821.
Yep.
Probably never played before that many people. Okay, the quarterback was Mike Schuler.
Yep.
His father, of course, people may know, is Don Schuler, and Mike Schuler is currently the quarterback coach for the Giants, an offensive coordinator.
He was actually a grad assistant when I tried out for Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Oh, is that right? Yeah.
Yes, he was down there. Yeah.
So Alabama ran back the second half kickoff to lead 31-14. So not looking too good for the Eagles.
Yeah.
And their head coach was Ray Perkins, who had been the head coach of the New York Giants. So there's a connection there. In the third quarter, 7:21 to go, Flutie runs 5 yards and gets you 7 points closer. Fourth quarter, 11:43 to go. Your field goal kicker, Mr. Snow, hits a 28-yarder. Then, with 4:58 to go, Flutie threw a pass to Jim Brown, 12 yards.
Mm-hmm.
And at 3:26 to go, Troy Stafford ran 42 yards for the winning touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
Here you are playing Alabama, in Alabama. You come back. This, I guess, shows you really had a team here.
Well, I can tell you the backstory of what went on just with Alabama, because the previous year we played Alabama in Foxborough in front of our home crowd, because BC played a lot of home games at Gillette Stadium, Foxborough Stadium at the time. And BC beat Alabama in Foxborough. And that game, it was cold. I mean, it was the coldest game I've ever been a part of. Now, I didn't play at all. Okay, I did not play at all. I was a redshirt freshman.
So you just standing there.
But I was just standing there, but I refused to put one of the pulleys over. I was a tough guy. I was trying to be a tough guy. And I remember that game in part because the lights went out at halftime. And they still played the game. So this was on TV. Imagine this. The lights went out in all of Foxborough. It was so cold, so I guess the generators went off. And it was just so cold. Steve Diossi, who was the captain of that football team, came out, and because Alabama was literally coming out, they were all dressed up. They had coats on, basically, underneath their uniforms. It was that bitter cold. It had to be close to zero. I'm sure the wind chill was below zero. And Diossi comes out, ripped his shirt, his bare belly is showing, his arms are up to here, no shirt, and our whole defense came out like that. And we just psyched those guys out, Alabama, and we beat them. It was a mental game. They did not want to play in the cold weather, and BC beat them up, and that was beautiful. So the next year, the whole storyline was going into Alabama was, hey, you're playing us here now.
You're on our home ground.
And it's warm, and guess what? It's not going to be the same thing.
It's not going to snow here.
Yeah, and that was the big storyline at the time. And I remember going in there, and this was my first really chance of playing, and we warmed up, and there's a little spot underneath the stands. I think it was in Tuscaloosa.
Birmingham.
It was in Birmingham. It was in Birmingham. And that little spot in Birmingham was underneath the stands, and you're kind of in a cage. So there's a fence on either side, and there's a fence over the top. So we're warming up a little bit before into the stands, and all of a sudden we start to feel stuff coming on us. There's fans climbing up, throwing stuff at us from above while we were there. They were just violent.
Yeah.
I mean, it was amazing, but it just got us more fired up. I remember running out, and they were playing Sweet Home Alabama, which was an amazing thing. You're right, 67,000 people was a lot. And we played a great game, just an unbelievable game.
Well, the second half.
Yeah.
First half,
our
had
seniors
trouble getting going.
were unbelievable.
Yeah.
We had a great group of seniors that year. I mean, Scott Harrington, great player, Tony Thurman, Jim Brown. I mean, just.
Well, of course, Troy Stafford, who scored the winning touchdown,
Yep.
He played 66 games in the NFL.
He did.
Mainly with Miami. But
Correct.
So you had some pretty good players on that team.
Yeah. And John Bosa also played in that team. John Bosa played in the NFL.
Yeah.
And his two boys now are the Bosa boys. One of them is with the Chargers. He was the number, 2 or 3 pick a couple years ago. And his boy Nick is going to be the number 1 pick next year's draft.
So Don Shula's son was the quarterback, Mike Shula. Was any talk about that? Or no big deal in that?
Not really. I think he was a lefty, as I remember.
Yeah.
So we didn't really have much interaction with what was happening on the offense. We were all worried
you're on the other.
defense.
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that they had a kid named. I think that the big linebacker they had back then was a kid named Cornelius Bennett. And I don't remember Cornelius Bennett, but he was a guy. I'm not sure if he won the Heisman or if he was a runner-up for the Heisman.
Yeah.
But he was one of those guys that was just an unbelievable player. So that's what I was more worried about.
Well, that's quite a start to your career. You start at home, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're down in Alabama, down there, 67,000. I'm sure there weren't too many BC fans there.
Well, we had a good contingent of people coming down. I could tell you my parents were down there.
Were they there?
My parents came to every single game, on the road or at home.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
And all but the Miracle of Miami. That's the only way they didn't go to.
Well, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
So that's then you took a week off,
Mhm.
and the next game was September 22nd in 1984, and you played North Carolina.
Mhm.
Doug Flutie threw for 354 yards, 6 touchdowns. You beat them 52-20.
Back then, 354 yards was like a 600-yard game today. I could tell you that. He threw the ball all over the field, and that was just a beatdown.
Yeah.
Now, those kids, again, did not want to be in the field with us. We beat them that badly. 6 touchdowns. He was amazing.
Yeah, you were, by that time, you were number 10 in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Number 10.
Yep.
You destroy North Carolina by that score.
Mm-hmm.
The next week, well, you had a couple of weeks off. October 13th was the next game. The next week, you're number 4 in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Number 4.
Don't tell me we come to West Virginia.
No, you're playing Temple at home.
Okay, all right, yeah.
Playing Temple at home,
Mm-hmm.
and the final score there was 24-10. So they gave you a pretty good tussle.
Yeah, it was a decent game. They were good. They were a tough team.
So you're still number 4 in the country. And the next week, you're still number 4 because you'd beaten Temple, but you go down to West Virginia.
This is
And if I recollect correctly, Doug Flutie always had trouble with West Virginia. It didn't matter where you were playing,
Correct.
West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
And the final score was 21 for West Virginia, and they were 20th in the country. So it isn't like they were
awesome.
just an also-ran. 21-20, you lose
Mhm.
by 1 point to West Virginia down there.
Coach Nealon was the coach there, as I recall, and I can tell you exactly what happened in that game. I won't mention names.
Yeah.
But we were winning. I think that towards the end of the game, West Virginia was marching, and we had a great, I want to say the best free safety in the country, Tony Thurman. Great player. He was the captain of that team. Tony came out for one play, and it was on the 4-yard line, or 5-yard line. They put in the second kid, and they called whatever the defensive play was. It was a run left by West Virginia, and we had this kid that came in for Tony Thurman, had him tackled in the backfield, about a yard loss. Couldn't get him on the ground.
He got away.
And he scored. And that what did us in.
That was the difference.
Yeah, that was a difference. And I always say that there were a couple of plays, because Penn State later in the year, in this, where there were a couple of plays, and we would have been national champions. I believe that.
Yeah.
I believe that, because I think we had 2 losses that year.
We'll get to those.
Yeah.
We'll concentrate on the wins
Sure.
here for a minute.
Yeah.
So that was a tough one. And
That
it
was a tough loss.
And Doug Flutie, for some reason, West Virginia, I don't know what it was, but it just seemed they had his number. They didn't have his number, but he just couldn't get over the hump.
That was Doug Flutie's kryptonite.
Yeah.
That absolutely was his kryptonite. West Virginia, for some reason, I mean, not that he wasn't great. Believe me, he was still great. I mean, he was better than most quarterbacks
God,
would
yeah.
be. But for some reason,
Just one of those.
couldn't
one of
pull the
those
miracle out. Yeah.
So we were number 4. We lose to West Virginia, who was number 20 by 1 point. They didn't blow you out.
Yep.
The next week, now we're number 11.
Mhm.
So it shows you how the polls,
Yep.
they shift very quickly.
Yep.
You lose by a point, and boom, you drop 7 spots. October 27th, we're playing Rutgers,
Mhm.
and a fairly close game, 35-23.
Yeah.
So
Don't really remember much about that game.
you're back home,
Yeah.
but you're back home.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not,
Mhm.
so you're playing Rutgers. Then November 3rd, we go back on the road to Penn State.
Mhm. Yeah.
And you mentioned we lost that game. It was 37-30. It wasn't, again, you didn't get blown out.
Yeah.
37-30. I don't know if you know this, but Doug Flutie, during that game, became the first player in college football to gain 10,000 yards in total offense.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, he fumbled twice and he was intercepted twice. So
Yeah.
that may have cost you a couple of points. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
those things happen.
Tough game to play.
Yeah.
Of course, Joe Paterno was the coach,
Yeah.
which to me, this is before all this stuff with Paterno and Sandusky happened. Of course,
Oh,
we didn't
nobody,
know.
this was
I mean,
before,
Joe
yeah.
Paterno was revered. Everyone knew of Joe Paterno, and everyone knew of Penn State. And to play at Happy Valley, I believe there had to be 90,000 there, or 80-something thousand. It was just unbelievable. We are Penn State. You couldn't hear a darn thing. And it was just amazing atmosphere to play in. I remember it being a back and forth game. I remember I got switched to fullback that game. That game, I think that we ended up, I think our starting fullback, Bobby Beestick, couldn't play. So they were looking for a backup fullback. So basically, I had never played fullback before, and I got a chance to play in 2 or 3 plays, where they were running the plays where they needed a fullback. So I didn't get a chance to play much in that game. I remember being disappointed because I was just a...
Now, I never played football, but all of a sudden now you're in a different position. So when you're in the huddle and they're calling the plays, somehow you got to switch over now. I'm not out here. I'm over here.
Sure.
Is that, how big a deal is that?
Well, I mean, it wasn't that big of a deal. Because it was only a very limited play set. Kind of like what they did with Josh Gordon now, right? They give him 2 plays, but he has to run a slant.
When you hear that, this is what you do? Yeah.
This is it. That was it. So at the time, it was just, they needed a guy to come in for a certain place that they were going to call, and that's what I did. But I do remember being disappointed, both, number one, that we lost, but I was a kid and I wanted to play. I wanted to play more, so...
Well, everybody does. I mean, if you didn't, you shouldn't be on the team.
Yeah.
You talked about Joe Paterno.
Yeah.
Your coach was Jack Bicknell.
Yeah.
Can you say a few words about Jack and what it was like to play for him, or were you more with the offensive coach? How was that?
No, Jack Bicknell was a legend. He was Cowboy Jack, and like I said, I guess previous to all this, my first recollections of BC would have kind of been maybe 78 with Fred Sproles and that crew, because they did something. They weren't a great team, but there were a lot of great players on that team. I think they were 0 and something, right? But I think they had 4 or 5.
To throw it out
but
there.
They had some 4 or 5 players that went on to play in the NFL. So, but previous to that, I was not, I know BC had some, previous to me being born, had a lot of good teams, but they really weren't great. And then Coach Bicknell comes in, and he brought, what was unusual about Coach Bicknell, and I found this out later, was that he was brought in his coaches. So basically, when he came from Maine, because I think that's where he coached previous, he brought all of his coaches with him.
So he had a team.
Yes, he had these guys that respected him, that knew his system, and he stood by them. He could have gone. I mean, BC was a major college program at the time. They were an Eastern Independent. They weren't part of a league. He could have had, his choice of coaches, assistant coaches, offensive coordinators, but he took those guys with him. And when they came, it was more like a family, so you showed up there. So that was his talent, was making everyone kind of feel like they belonged. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that always stuck with me with him because there's 100 players in the team. It's not like high school football where you might have 30 kids in my high school team. This was 100 guys, and how do you build relationships with 100 different people? But he found a way to do that. He just found a way to do it. And it wasn't always putting your arm around, everybody. Right. I remember because he was a good guy putting his arm around you and all that, but I remember when reports came out, we were all freshmen, standing, he called all the freshmen in and says, grades are out, blah, 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 blah. And he, let into us all about our grades and how we did. And
so he knew.
Yeah, he knew everything that happened in the program. Yeah. And he was a guy that was on top of everything. And he wasn't just there to coach football. He was there to kind of give us all, kind of good morality. This is how you win. This is how you play. And I loved him as a great guy.
Now, how much interaction would you have with him versus you're a tight end, you're on the specialty teams? How did all that come together?
Well, my freshman year, I was actually, my coach would have been Tom Coughlin.
Oh, really?
Tom Coughlin was my position coach. Tom Coughlin.
Because you were the quarterback, so Tom Coughlin would have been.
Tom Coughlin was our offensive coordinator and the quarterbacks coach. So I was in all the Tom Coughlin meetings.
I see.
So I could tell you Tom Coughlin was unbelievable. By far, the best coach that I ever had the pleasure of playing for.
Now, he didn't come from Maine with Jack, did he?
I don't know. I believe he did. I believe that he was in the lineage with Coach McNell, yes. Yep.
So he kind of...
Yeah. The only guy that they kind of inherited would have been Coach Gallup, who was
Barry Gallup.
Barry Gallup, who's still BC, and again, one of the greatest guys in the world. But Tom Coughlin, Tom Coughlin was so detail-oriented even back then. I remember as a quarterback, we used to do run and stretch as a team. So you basically line up on one sideline to the other sideline and you jog back and forth or high leg kicks or whatever it was. Coach Coughlin was so detail oriented, he used to worry about how we held our fingers when we ran. So he wanted us to hold our fingers together, and he wanted us to pump our arms a certain way, and it had to be a certain cadence with our legs. And it just, maybe that's why he's been such a great coach, and just about everything he touches.
So that was for the quarterbacks?
That was for the quarterbacks, yes. So he took Sean Halloran, myself, Doug Flutie, Mark Campos, well, he didn't have Campos, but whoever the QBs were, Steve Peach, he took us all,
and he treated you all the same. Flutie.
Well, he did. He did. He made sure everyone knew everything. So he was one of those guys that made sure you knew everything that was going on, even if you weren't going to play. Yeah.
So was he the coach that maybe said, Peter, I don't see you being that quarterback?
It was actually Coach McNell.
It was really? Yeah.
Coach McNell came to me, and it would have been at some point during my freshman year, and because most of my freshman year was spent running scout team. So you're running scout team and you're running scout team quarterback, and you're not even getting all the scout team quarterback reps because there's a couple, maybe 3 other quarterbacks.
You're not the only one, yeah.
So you're kind of doing a lot of standing around, and not so much with BC's plays, but with Penn State's plays, Yeah, so that's really what it was. So as I look at the picture that you showed originally, I actually had on a different face mask, because that's the only change I made. They give the same number, but they switched out the quarterback mask for a tight end mask.
And gave you a different number.
Yeah, no, they didn't give me a different number until sophomore.
Until sophomore, I see.
But that was what, Coach McNell was the one that came to me and told me, if you want to play, you got to switch.
So you went from, so of course, now Coach Coughlin is quarterbacks. You're a tight end. So is it a different coach then? What happened there?
Yes, it was a different coach. It would have been Barry Gallup, Barry was a recruiting coordinator and just a BC legend. He played for BC. Yeah. He was also a tight end. He was now the tight ends coach. He's a recruiting coordinator. He's the longest tenured guy. He's still at BC now. I believe he's the associate athletic director. Yeah. And just the guy that keeps us all together even today. Yeah.
So, and specialty teams, was there a different coach for that, or how?
Yeah, I think Coach Carmichael was the special teams coach, and everyone coached back then. Everyone kind of coached a different specialty team. So I played just about every specialty team all through college.
Now, on the specialty team, were you on the offense and defense, or just?
Yeah, I kickoff return, kickoff,
and then
punt.
Yeah.
I was never on punt return. That's the only one I wasn't on, but I was on every other one. Every year I played. Yeah.
And now that I was interested. This year they have the rule where on the kickoffs you can fair catch it and take it out to the 25.
Yeah. Which
isn't a bad. I think it's from a safety concern, and getting the ball in the 25 isn't a bad deal. It's tough to get past that when you.
Yeah, as a former player or as a parent, I look at it and say safety is awesome. This is the right thing to do. Yeah. But from a football perspective, watching it, I mean, I kind of miss those collisions and.
Well, that's an exciting play. I mean, that's really opening kickoff. Boom! What can happen? So to see an opening kickoff run back is pretty exciting.
It's very exciting, and I think that's kind of been taken out of even college football now.
Well, because they can fair catch.
Yeah, they're worried about collisions.
But the number of times you can run back the kickoff is very few and rare.
Yeah, but I remember
I think that's what makes it exciting.
I can tell you this. I remember playing Notre Dame and playing Tim Brown, and Tim Brown was a Heisman Trophy winner.
Right, yeah.
And I remember running down, and I'm glad we got a running start then, because Tim Brown was so fast that literally by the time you got to him, it was like a bus. He was 20 yards the other way. You couldn't see him. It was like a train. He was an unbelievable player, Tim Brown.
Yeah, those
played against a lot of great players.
Okay, well, we talked about Coach McPherson, and November 17th, going along here in the schedule, November 17th, 1984. We're now, November 10th. I skipped one here. November 10th, we're number 16, and we play the Army.
Yep.
And we beat the Army 45-31. But
Mhm.
looks like the Army gave us a pretty good game.
Yeah, really good.
The Army was no pushover here.
No, they were no pushover. They ran that triple option and hard to guard. I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
I think we had trouble moving the ball against them, but yes, it was. Those kids were remarkably well coached and disciplined.
Yeah. So we were 16th in the country when we played played the Army. We beat them by 14 points. That therefore got us on November 17th, our next game against Syracuse. We were 13th in the country. So we're moving back up in the polls. We're playing Syracuse. As we said, the coach was Dick McPherson.
Correct.
He would later on coach the Patriots, 1991, 92. And they gave you a pretty good game, 24-16.
Yep. I remember this game because this would have been the first game that I ever started because Scott Gieselman was hurt.
Now he would have been the starting tight end.
He was the starting tight end, so he couldn't play this game.
Yeah.
So I played most of this game. And I remember that was a big deal to me at the time, but it was a big deal that we beat them because Syracuse was a big rival.
Well, and then they were always a good team.
Was our biggest rival.
The Big Orange.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we played them, I believe that was at Gillette Stadium or Foxborough Stadium.
Yeah, at that time, yeah. So we beat them. And the next game we play is November 23rd, 1984, which is the day after Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
We're number 10 in the country now.
Mm-hmm.
We're playing number 12 in the country, a team by the name of Miami.
Mm-hmm.
We're down in Miami. When did you? I mean, Thanksgiving was the day before. How did that seem to you?
Yeah, well, it was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Because back then, you ever feel like king of the world? That was the moment in time where I kind of felt on top of things. At that time, I went back to my high school field and watched my high school football team play on Thanksgiving morning.
The Thursday before the game?
Thursday before the game. We left after. We left kind of like 2.
In the afternoon, yeah.
So I could go to the game. I went from the game to BC and got on a plane because we were able to stay at home for Thanksgiving.
That was not.
They kind of left in the afternoon on Thursday
so
afternoon.
You had Thanksgiving.
So they gave us Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So I got to watch my high school football game. And at the time, because BC and Doug Flutie were a big deal, and I was kind of lucky to be along for the ride, everyone was talking about Boston College. And everyone, just about everyone I knew, everyone come up to me and said, "Oh, you got Miami tomorrow and Bernie Kosar and whoever." I mean, they were just unbelievable, right? And
well, they were the national champs, I think.
They were,
yeah.
and back then, the day after Thanksgiving was very unusual. There was no other football game being played that day. The Boston College Miami game was the only televised football game.
It wasn't like the Black Friday we have now.
Correct, where you have 500 games.
Right, yeah.
Everyone in the country watched that game.
Yeah, it was the national game.
That was it. That was the national game, and it was the only game, and everyone watched it. And I can say Flutie and Kosar did not disappoint.
Well, it was a shootout.
Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
So you get down to Miami. You didn't practice on Thursday, did you?
No practice. We probably had a walkthrough maybe when we got there. Most likely, a lot of times you had a walkthrough when you got there. I remember going to the Orange Bowl Friday night, Thursday night.
The game was like mid-afternoon.
Yeah, but we went to the Orange Bowl that night.
Oh, the night
because you always go to the field the day before.
Just to get a feel for it.
To get a feel, so you can figure out what cleats you want to wear and that type of thing. So we ended up going to the Orange Bowl the day before.
Okay, so you're playing. We have Doug Flutie, who ends up being the Heisman Trophy winner.
Mm-hmm.
We have Bernie Kosar, who was 4th in voting for the Heisman Trophy.
Correct.
So we got a couple of high-powered quarterbacks. Their backup quarterback was Vinny Testaverde, who would end up playing 233 games in the NFL.
Yep.
He doesn't even play. I mean,
didn't even play.
Pretty good guy in the sideline there.
One down.
Their coach was Jimmy Johnson,
Yep.
who coached after Miami. He coached the Dallas Cowboys, 1980. What have I got here? 1989 to 93, and then later on the Miami Dolphins, 1996 to 1999.
Mm-hmm.
So you had a high-powered coach.
Yep.
It was the game of the day, maybe the game of the year.
Oh, I would put that up there with one of the best games of all time, if I'm being honest. It was one of the best games of all time.
So we go back and forth.
Mhm.
I mean, we can talk about all these plays, back and forth, back and forth. Miami scores 28 seconds to go in the game.
Mhm.
They're ahead, 45-41. 28 seconds. Miami, now I don't know what their strategy was, but with 28 seconds to go, they kicked it into the end zone.
Mhm.
So there was no, and
You remember that better than I
you did not, well, not you,
Yep.
but BC did not run it out.
So we didn't
Did
have to
not
waste
take
time.
any time out. We got 28 seconds.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm no football guy, but I thought, try to kick it so they, have to run a little bit of time off the clock. I don't know if that would have been a good strategy or not. In hindsight,
Yeah.
it didn't happen. They kick it out. They kick it in the end zone. We've got 28 seconds to go. The ball is on the 20-yard line. And let's look at the first play that happens.
Okay.
We've got it right here.
Yeah.
We're going to
wow.
Doug Flutie.
This is pretty
Let's
good.
see, what do we have here?
It looks like the kickoff.
That should be the kickoff.
Yeah, looks like the
There
kickoff.
it is. Okay, so there's the kickoff.
Yeah.
And as you can see, he didn't even, he
He let it
went
go
right out of the end
through.
zone. So there's your 28
That's Tyron
seconds. There we
Taylor.
go.
That's Strad.
Okay, so that's the first play.
Okay.
And with 28 seconds to go, he threw it, a completion. We're still long way to go here.
Mhm.
What's the chance of winning here? I don't know, but you're still alive.
I can tell you this,
Now-
and again, point in time,
Yeah.
before the kickoff, the kickoff return team is all huddled together.
Right.
And Doug Flutie, I'm on the kickoff return team, Doug Flutie's floating around saying, we're going to win this game. Just give me the ball, we're going to win this game. And we all believed him. You know what I mean? We all believed him.
So you were on the kickoff. You
Kickoff
were on the
return
field for the kickoff.
Kickoff
When-
return, yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Now, were you on the field for this play we just watched?
I
The
don't
first
believe
play?
I was on the first play.
you on the first
I wouldn't
yeah.
know.
Okay.
I looked. I thought it looked like Gieselman in there. I know I
Okay.
come in maybe this play.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I remember when he put me in, being surprised. What am I doing going in here?
Yeah.
But I was lucky. I got a chance to.
Well,
go.
that pass to Troy Stratford went 19 yards. He's
Yep.
very good. He was a very good player.
Oh, Strad was great player.
He's a good runner.
Oh, great
Receiver.
pass receiver. It would have been a great player in today's NFL because he could catch.
Yeah.
And very shifty. Back then, it wasn't so much. BC at the time ran a very kind of futuristic offense. Football was basically ground and pound back then, and BC was throwing the ball all over the field. Maybe 25, 30 times.
Oh,
a
that was a
game.
shootout,
Which
the
was,
OK Corral.
Yeah.
So here we go. We catch that. There's 20 seconds to go in the game now.
Now let's.
So now
see.
we're down up to second. It's second down. So let's watch what happens on second down here
Let's
if
see
we
what
can.
happens. It looks like I'm. It looks like I'm not.
So that was
that's
Gieselman.
So I'm not in
So-
for this
So
play.
you're not in for that.
I haven't been in. I come in now.
Okay. So and now.
Well, I could have been in because it could have been two tight ends here.
Yeah, it
but
could
I'm
have
not
been.
sure.
Yeah.
I'm not
So
sure.
it's two and now that the back. This is from the national broadcast.
Yep.
Brent Musburger
Yep.
is the announcer,
Mhm.
and that's Gieselman. As you can see there on the
Another
screen,
great player.
12 seconds to go.
Mhm.
We picked up the first down there, but we got to pick up more than the first down.
Yep.
So now it's third down, and you are in the game.
Yep. I have to be in here.
You're in the game, and if we can run it on third down, here it is.
So-
Incomplete.
Yeah.
But what he didn't say is incomplete to Casparriello.
Yep. At the time,
Yeah.
I'm just running my pattern.
Yeah.
That's all. The ball's in the air. And I knew in my mind, because Flutie told us, I'm sure, I don't remember, but I knew I had to get out of bounds.
Yeah,
So,
right. Well, you had 2 timeouts left. Now, I don't know. I don't think you had used. You must have used them on the first play.
Yeah.
Looked like Gieselman got out of bounds. So you
Yeah.
maybe had 1 to go.
Yeah, but we still
But-
needed. What if we needed a timeout? Because you
Yeah.
want to be able to use the middle of the field as much
Right.
as you can.
Well, you
so the whole point
yeah.
was, if you wanted to catch that ball, you
Get-
would better
get
get out
out.
of bounds. Yeah. But when the ball was in the air, I knew I didn't have a chance to catch it, and I was just trying to knock it down and make sure nobody else intercepted it. I'm sure that's all it was, but I don't think that was a catchable ball. Everyone tells me because just like when I met you today earlier, Paul, you said you're lucky you didn't, you dropped that ball. I'm like, I did not drop that ball. That was not catchable.
That was probably the worst thrown pass Flutie ever made. Yes.
So here, I believe this is the play, right?
This is going to be the play with Brent Messberger.
But what you'll see, because I'm not sure if you know this, if this is the actual play.
This is it. We're going to show it.
But there was a stoppage in play previous.
Right. Yeah.
So one thing I'll tell you about the play is before this play happened, Flutie's calling the signals, and I thought I went offside.
Oh.
I thought.
Now, where?
I'm right here, the tight end closest.
You're down here closest to us.
I'm the closest in the screen.
Yeah.
So I thought that he was calling signals. The referee blew the whistle. I guess we'd call the timeout, or the ref wanted to rearrange the ball or do something. I thought that I moved, and I was scared to death. Turned out I did not. And at that time, Flutie came over to me and kind of changed my responsibilities of the play.
Yeah.
So beforehand. So if you run the play, maybe.
So what would you? I mean, what was it said in the huddle? Just run like hell down there, or what?
Well, this play's called 55 flood tip.
Yeah.
So I can remember
55
flood 55 flood tip. We practiced it all the time in practice. All the time we practiced this play. And at the my responsibility in this play, and I wasn't a great receiving tight end, but I was a decent blocker.
Yeah.
My responsibility is block backside. So basically, I'm a lineman, six lineman. For this play. So I'm supposed to block backside. But when there was a stoppage in that play, Flutie came over to me at that moment in time and walked over to me and said, Peter, run down, run a jet and stay on the left side of the field no matter what. Stay on the left side of the field no matter what. So.
Now, Gieselman wasn't in that.
He waved Gieselman off. He told Gieselman to stay off because Gieselman was coming out after that stoppage in play.
Yeah, after the incompletion.
Whatever reason, waved him off and came over to me and said, run down the left side. If I'm guessing, was most likely because I was more innocuous.
Yeah.
So if he had this thing where he wanted to run, they didn't want to put their All-American tight end in.
Right.
So he might want to just have me run that jet down the left sideline. Probably never asked him, but maybe that's what it was. So I ran a jet down the left sideline, and of course you know what happened.
Well, we're going to see what happened.
Yeah. But I wasn't part of the play, but I can tell you that I was wide open.
Here it is.
That's the stoppage in play.
Yeah.
That was a stoppage in play.
This is one of the better ones that I've seen. 3 wide receivers out to the right.
So you see him looking over to me, but he couldn't do it because that was unbelievable.
There's number 85 right there.
That was amazing. Wow. Unbelievable.
You're there somewhere.
Yeah.
He threw it into the end zone. There was no time left on the clock. The ball went between 2 defensive backs of Miami.
That's amazing.
The only person over there on the sidelines. He couldn't get the headset off fast enough.
That was unbelievable.
Flutie has done it. And your heart goes out to Bernie Kosar, who did everything he could. And like we said, it went down to the last at bat.
Now, that was the national feed. Brent Musburger did it. I somehow saw or read that Brent Musburger did not know who caught the ball. And in the truck, there was a BC graduate, I forget the fellow's name, who told Brent through the earphones it was Gerard Phelan.
Yep.
So,
I'm not sure of that story, but
well, who knows?
Yeah.
But that was exciting. But then again, the big one that we all heard here in Massachusetts was the radio call.
Oh.
And let's listen to the radio
yes,
call.
that was awesome.
Run the radio call. We got the Boston call. Dan Davis, I believe, did the call here.
Yeah.
This was, you didn't hear this when you're on the field, but I think BC fans can watch this over and over and over. Never get tired.
Yeah.
So this is the call. Same play, different call.
Really great. Unbelievable. It was a great call.
I don't think BC Eagles ever get tired of watching that play.
No, it was a great call. It was a great call, and just remarkable. Lucky enough to be a part of it, I can tell you that.
That was, and you were open? You think you were open?
Hold on. I'm gonna tell you this. I don't have much claim to fame, but this one thing I do. This goes all the way back. So I remember it because the company I was working for at the time had, I forget what it was, but it was our annual sales meeting. So it's up in Canada somewhere, maybe Toronto. And I was married in 1991. And my wife and I are on our honeymoon, and they gave me to be a little late, maybe a day late because of the honeymoon. And but they invited my wife, so my wife and I came into the national sales meeting, while the CEO or the president is up there talking. And he must have saw my wife and I walk in, so and I didn't know this at the time, he holds up a Sports Illustrated, and he goes, Peter Casparriello just came in the room. And he said, let me read from the 50 greatest sports plays of all time in Sports Illustrated. So, of course, one of the 50 greatest plays at the time was the BC Miracle in Miami play. And the blurb, it was just a little blurb, and it said, greatest play of all time, Gerard Phelan catches the pass from Miracle in Miami from Doug Flutie. Too bad Doug threw it to the wrong player. Peter Casparriello, tight end, softball was wide open in the left corner of the end zone. But, so that's out there. They actually have the copy of that little blurb from that play. So the 50 greatest plays of all time. And Flutie actually said, and he's told me, because he came up to me after the game. He said, Peter, I saw you. He said, but I could not pivot. His plan was to go to the right.
Because he was going,
and pivot back to throw to the left.
I see.
That's what his plan was.
So he figured everybody's going to the right,
Told me to stay on the left side of the field,
Yeah.
and I did. So, he knew, I don't know how he knew it, but the guy that was covering me was just the defensive end.
Just one-on-one.
Number 99 was over my head.
Yeah.
And about 10 yards down the field, he took off on a sprint to the other side of the field where the three players were.
Oh, so you were alone.
I was all alone on the 10-yard line, like this. And that's the truth. So he saw me, but he couldn't throw it to me.
Okay, well, the Miracle in Miami gets us...
I would have dropped it.
No, you wouldn't be talking to me.
No. Nobody would remember the Miracle.
So the Miracle in Miami, we were 10, and the next week's December. It only got us 2 spots. We're up to number 8 now.
That's remarkable. I didn't know that. Yeah.
And we're coming to my college, my alma mater, Holy Cross. We're going to play Holy Cross in Worcester.
Did they have Lockbaum at the time?
No, they didn't have Cody at that time.
Yet. Who was the guy, the great player? They had another guy before.
I figured who they had. But at any rate, when I went to Holy Cross, the BC Holy Cross was a big rivalry.
Sure.
It was the game. If we lost every game and beat BC, we were happy. So when I was a junior in 1966, we played at BC.
Okay.
BC was a big favorite. Holy Cross got off to a big lead. BC came back. And BC was ahead toward the end. Holy Cross scored with about 2 or 3 minutes to go. A fellow named Jack Lentz threw to Peter Casparriello. And Holy Cross is ahead. And we're going to win. Well, we were young then. A bunch of us jumped the fence. I couldn't even get up the foot. We jumped the fence, and we were all standing along the sideline with the team.
Okay.
And BC's trying to win. Came down to the last play of the game. Everybody, the Holy Cross team, all us kids standing there, we thought, whoops, we all were like on the 50-yard line, looking straight ahead. We were like in the BC backfield, or the backfield.
Yeah.
And the last play, Holy Cross held, Holy Cross wins. I
Wow.
mean, so that was a rivalry.
And this was at Alumni Stadium?
That was at Alumni Stadium,
Okay.
1966. And now we're 18 years later.
Uh-huh.
You're playing Holy Cross, which I guess is still a big rivalry then.
It
But
was
you're coming down from a
huge.
big game. I mean,
No, that was a huge
Yep.
rivalry. That was the thing. We were told that, listen, we could not lose to Holy Cross. That's it. That was it. It could be all the BC alumni. They did not even want Holy Cross in the game. I mean, it was a big deal. If you lost to BC, if you lost to Holy Cross, that was the end of it.
well, then the Crusaders would have been up for you because you
Yep.
would have been ripe for the picking. I took this picture. We have later on pictures from on the photos from on the sideline. I've not got this autographed. I tried to get them autographed. This I couldn't.
Yep.
I haven't yet. But that's Doug Flutie throwing to Kelvin Martin.
Great play.
That's the
Kelvin.
picture I took. And at halftime, one of my sons, I had my 3 boys,
Mhm.
my youngest had to go to the men's room.
Okay.
So we were in the lower end zone. And by then, Holy Cross wasn't there when I went there, but they had the locker room down by that end zone, and they had a men's room. So I took my son, he went in, he came out, and I said, wait a minute, the Holy Cross locker room's right here. It was 17-10 at halftime.
Yep, yep.
Let's root them on. And what I remember, Peter, is when they came out of the locker room, they were dead. I mean, you had beaten them to a pulp. I said, this game is over. And it was. It ended up, unfortunately, 45-10.
Yeah.
17-10 became 45. Flutie in the second half took off. He goes down to New York, gets his Heisman.
That was the big rush where he jumped on a plane and
Yeah.
on a helicopter and all that stuff. I remember that day.
And this is where my kids became BC fans. I went to Holy Cross.
Easy to root for Doug Flutie,
Yeah.
I'll tell you. And easy to root for that team. I mean, that was a great team.
So we beat Holy Cross, and next up is the Cotton Bowl. We're still number 8 in the country, but there's, I guess that's your mother and father
That's my mom and dad.
down in Texas there for the Cotton Bowl.
Yep.
And we're playing Houston. So again, it's kind of a home game for them.
Yeah, it was. It was kind of a home game for them. You know, we were great. I think that I can tell you this, up until the recent Patriots run, I know that there were stories that this was the largest exodus out of Massachusetts for a football game.
Yeah, up to
I
that.
think we had about 30,000 people
From BC?
from Massachusetts.
Massachusetts, yeah.
There was 25 or 30,000 people who were going down there. My sister worked for Northwest at the time, Northwest Orient.
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember her telling me that. That was like unbelievable, the number of people going down to that game. And my family, all my family was there. My mom, my dad, my brothers, my sisters, aunts, uncles, friends, cousins. I mean, we had a blast down there.
Yeah, BC was ahead 31-28 after 3 quarters, but then 45-28 was the final. That was your game.
Pretty close game.
You did a great game. So we win the Super Bowl.
Nope.
I'm sorry, the Cotton Bowl. The MVPs of that game was Steve Straken and Bill
Strahan.
Romanowski.
Billy Romanowski,
So,
yeah.
another good player.
Romo was a great player, so was Strahan. They were both great, but Romo was a special player.
So you end up number 5 in the country. Maybe that West Virginia, who knows? But 5 is pretty good.
No, we
5 is
were
pretty good.
disappointed. I can
Yeah.
I can tell you honestly, we were disappointed. We thought we should have been national champions that year. We should have been. Should have been.
And then we have a last picture here. This is your senior year. You got through it, and you're still number 85. Now, who are these fellows in the picture with you?
Well, that's the athletic director, Bill Flynn,
Oh, yeah.
BC legend, of
Yeah.
course. This guy has meant so much to the Boston College program. He really treated us well. Just a all around great guy. The other gentlemen I'm with are Dave Nugent, good friend. He was a tri-captain.
What number is he?
Number 71.
71, Dave
Yep.
Nugent.
And Dave's up in Reading. He's from Reading. And Jimmy Turner is number 40. And Jimmy was also a tri-captain. And Jimmy was a walk-on at Boston College. He's out of Braintree. And he worked his way to a scholarship and being a captain his senior year. He's a great guy. He was actually an NFL assistant coach. He was the assistant coach for, remember the guy, the bullying with Incognito and Martin down in the Miami Dolphins a few years back?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he was the assistant coach.
Oh, was he really?
He was the offensive line coach for Miami at the time. So, but no, he's still coaching, I believe, in Texas A&M, I think, right now.
So that was a walkthrough of 1984 and 1985,
Wow.
a year that you'll remember.
Thank you.
We're going to get back to you in a minute. We're just going to skip over now to our portion of the show called Photos from on the Sideline. And a lot of us like sports. A lot of us like to take pictures. I'm one of those, and I like to try to take a picture, and maybe you can get it autographed. This here is a picture of Joe Morgan. Joe Morgan was the manager of the Red Sox. He became manager on July 14th, 1988, when the Red Sox were having trouble winning. This picture was taken on August 12th, 1988, and Joe Morgan was in the midst then. The Red Sox won the first 12 games that Joe was the manager, and then they signed him to be the permanent manager. He would end up having a record of 301 wins, 262 losses. So Joe was a very good manager. Took those Red Sox from losing, took them to the playoffs. Unfortunately, they couldn't win, but I think Joe Morgan did a great game, did a great time managing for the Boston Red Sox. So our trivia question is, in relation to Joe Morgan, we can win the golf package donated by our friends at Avidia Bank. The question relating to Joe Morgan is, what college did Joe Morgan attend? Please send us your answers to studio@westboroughTV.org for our fine golf package donated by Avidia Bank. What college did Joe Morgan attend, a great manager from the Boston Red Sox? You may know the answer, but we're not telling Peter, okay? We've got to keep that a secret. So, Peter, you've got a couple of, you married? Got a couple of boys playing football?
I am married.
Yeah?
Yes, I married my high school sweetheart, Lisa Ritchie, the former Lisa Ritchie, and we have 4 great kids. We moved to Westborough, I want to say 2000.
Yeah.
And I have, my oldest is Ricky, played football at Westborough High. From Mark Ellis, I have my Anthony, who played for Coach Ellis and Coach Tingloff. And then I have my Dominic, who's currently playing for Coach Tingloff, he's a senior. And then I have my Bella, who's 15, my daughter.
So we're still involved, the boys playing football?
Yeah.
Now what position were they?
Well, my oldest boy was a pretty good player. He was a little kid. My kids are big kids, like their dad. Luckily, they take after their mom. But my oldest boy is probably maybe 5'11", 6 foot, very thin but athletic. He played defensive back and receiver. I remember, think of the greatest time, the memory I have watching him play. They beat Wachusett. Westborough plays the end of the lights games.
Right.
The very first one, they beat the number 2 ranked Wachusett in Westborough. And I remember that game. My son caught a touchdown on a fake field goal. It was awesome. I just one of my favorite memories of all time watching sport. And my Anthony was a fullback, and he played for Coach Tingloff. He was an all-league performer. He's a bigger kid. He currently plays now for Worcester State football, so I got a good football game to go watch on Saturday. And my Anthony is a bull. Dominic is my third boy, and he currently plays wide receiver for a pretty good Westborough High School football team.
They're coming on.
They're coming on. They should be 4-2.
Yeah.
But Coach Tingloff does a great job with them and that whole staff there. They're remarkable. Great coaching staff there. And a great group of boys. Great group of boys. The senior group has been playing together for a lot of years. And all those kids love football. And they have very strong sophomore and junior classes. So there's a lot of good things to come with Westborough High School football. And my daughter is not at the high school now. She's currently at Walnut Hill High School. She's going to school for the art. She's a dancer. She's beautiful.
Well, we're glad to have you on, Peter. Glad we could reminisce over this 1984 and the football. And
I can't believe that people actually remember that game. That's the thing that always amazes me. When you called me up to say, Peter, I want to talk to somebody about something that happened.
Well, people remember the Miracle in Miami. I don't know, it may not be in the top 50, but around here, it's got to be way up there.
It is in the top 50. I'm going to fight you on that one. I'm going to fight you on that. That is the top 50 play of all time, the game of all time. But thanks for having me, Paul.
Okay, well, this is Paul McGrath saying, I hope to see you at the game. And if you're not in the game, I hope to see you on the sidelines.
That was fun.
Thanks a lot.